Are you a beginner who struggles to punish early queen attacks? Well, in this video is just for you. Step by step, I will tell you how to play against these early queen moves. Before this video begins, make sure to like and subscribe. It only takes 3 seconds and it really helps me out a lot. So how do these early queen attacks look like? e4, e5 and queen to h5 is the most common queen attack. This is known as the Wayward Queen Attack. The way how we punish this is by step looking at what our opponent is actually threatening. In this case, it's the e5 pawn. So for this reason, it would be a good idea to defend the e5 pawn with the natural move knight to c6. Very often, I see beginners play the move pawn to g6. Now don't get me wrong, I understand the rationale behind the move pawn to g6. You don't like the fact that this queen is on such an active square, but g6 simply creates lots and lots of weaknesses. Queen takes e5, picks up the rook, and we have unfortunately lost the game. For the same reason, knight to f6 is a huge mistake. We have blundered the e5 pawn and we have a very difficult game. So in general, it's really about looking at what your opponent is threatening and then countering that with the correct move. Also, it's important not to play a reactive move like pawn to g6 or knight to f6. You really need to break it down and look at what your opponent is threatening. So knight to c6 defends the e5 pawn, and more likely than not, white will play bishop to c4. Once again, we ask ourselves the question, what is white threatening? In this case, it's queen takes f7 checkmate. And something I would like to mention, all of these early queen attacks revolve around the f7 pawn. The reason for this, if we look at the chessboard, the pawns f7 and f2 are the only pawns defended by the king. So they are very weak pawns. So we played knight c6 and bishop to c4 threatens queen takes f7 checkmate. I will mention it once again, do not play a reactive move like knight to f6 looking to kick the queen out. This blunders checkmate in 1. Instead, identify the threat, which is queen takes f7 check, and find a way around it. Some ways you can go around this are queen e7, queen f6, knight h6, and pawn to g6. These are really the only 4 moves you can play. Queen e7 I don't like because it blocks our bishop. Queen f6 is okay, but after queen f6, I'm slightly worried about pawn to d3 and the bishop coming out to g5, so this is also not great. Knight to h6 looks okay, but after pawn to d3 once again, we have a lot of pressure. If we play a move like a6, for example, bishop takes h6, white has removed the defender and has checkmated us on f7. So knight h6 I also wouldn't really recommend. For this reason, pawn to g6 is, in my opinion, by far the best and most practical move against early queen attacks. Queen f3 is most likely going to be played. Once again, we ask ourselves the question what our opponent is threatening. In this case, once again, it's queen takes f7 checkmate. So don't make a lazy move like bishop to g7, this blunders checkmate in 1. Instead, find a way around the threat. One thing we can definitely do is play queen to f6. And the psychology behind this move is that we actually want a queen trade. If the queens come off the board, look at this position right here. These pawns are symmetrical, so that's okay. We have 2 pieces out and white only has 1 piece out. We're about to fianchetto our bishop and castle kingside. This isn't good. White is the one who makes the first move. Black should not have 1 piece more out than white. So queen f6 is a very practical move, but in my opinion, knight f6 is the best because it's a very natural move and you don't disrupt your natural development. If you were to play queen f6, you have a difficult time of getting your knight out. So after queen d1, this knight is kind of stuck on g8. So knight to f6, and something I see a lot from the white side is the move pawn to g4. This is kind of the last try white has of attacking the f7 pawn, right? The whole idea behind pawn to g4 is to play pawn to g5. So this is the first thing we have to see. We have to identify the threat. The threat is g5, attacking our knight. If we move our knight, we get checkmated on f7. So once we've identified the threat, we need to find a way around it. Something we can do is pawn to h6. This isn't the best move. This is far from the best move, but it's a very practical option of preventing g5. A much better move is the move knight to d4. This is the move I recommend. And what makes the move knight d4 so good is that we're attacking the queen, we're threatening knight c2, which is a devastating fork, so queen d1 is virtually forced. And now there's simply no more attack. We can play bishop to g7, we can play knight takes c4, we can play pawn to d5, we can prepare d5 with pawn to c6, so c6 and then d5. In general, we have a very, very comfortable middle game ahead of us. And that's really the problem with these early queen attacks. The queen is the most powerful piece on the board. So while that is good, while that gives lots of attacking prospects, especially regarding the f7 square, if we can find a way around that, we just kick the queen out so many times that we simply gain so much development. So the queen being the most valuable piece is both great and terrible. It's great because you have lots of attacking prospects, but if your opponent can consolidate, well then simply we will have so much development and we will have a better middle game. Another potential queen attack is e4, e5 and queen to f3. Now this is much less common, but this nonetheless threatens certain queen takes f7 checkmate ideas. Very similarly to before, we have to first identify the threat. What is white currently threatening? Well, in this case, it's actually nothing. The e5 pawn is safe, the f7 pawn is currently safe, defended by our king, so queen f3 currently isn't that dangerous of a move. But what we can do is think a step ahead. When we see the move queen f3, we know for a fact that white is going to look for some f7 stuff. So we can anticipate that white's going to play the move bishop to c4. So we can play the move knight to f6 so that when white plays bishop to c4, we've already blocked the queen's connection to the f7 pawn. A way that this can continue is knight to c6, simply developing our pieces, and white once again might try the move pawn to g4. So let's take a step back, let's identify what white is threatening. In this case, it's to push g5, dislocate our knight, and then give queen takes f7 checkmate. So we've identified the threat, let's see if we can find a way around that threat. One way of going around this is the move pawn to h6. It's not the best move, but it clearly prevents pawn to g5, at least for the time being. If you paid attention to what I said before, whenever the queen is on f3, the move knight d4 is very powerful. We attack the queen, we attack the c2 pawn, the queen has to defend the c2 pawn, thus leaving the f-file, and now knight takes e4 is more than good enough. We're going to solidify with a move like pawn to d5, bishop c5, short castles. We are so much better. Look at our center right here. We control the full center as black in 6 moves. Staying on the topic of the weak f7 pawn, I'm going to show you another form of an early attack. So e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and bishop to c4. This is the Italian game. Here, most beginners play knight to f6 because they learn they should put a pawn in the center, develop both knights, get their bishop out and castle. However, in the Italian game, I would not recommend this because here white has the move knight g5. Now I know the title of this video is mentioned how to punish early queen attacks. This is not a queen attack, but nevertheless it's an attack on the f7 pawn. And if you don't know what to do here, you will lose very quickly. Pawn to h6 simply loses to a fork. We're going to lose at least our rook. The correct move in this position is pawn to d5, which as a beginner is such a difficult move to spot. And the whole point is that after e takes d5, we slide our knight to a5, right? Kind of cutting the bishop so it's no longer on this diagonal. We transfer it to this diagonal, which is a lot less dangerous. So in my opinion, you should stay away from all of these shenanigans with knight to f6. Now I know the opening principle you learned, pawn in the center, both knights out, bishop out and castle. Unfortunately, the Italian game is an exception because of this whole knight g5 business. So after bishop c4, I would simply recommend to go bishop to c5. And the whole point is that white doesn't have the move knight g5 anymore because our queen can take. This was the whole point. When we developed our knight, white could play knight g5 because our queen is no longer looking at the g5 square, the knight is blocking it. So first we played bishop to c5, let's say white castles, and now we can play the move knight to f6. But wait, you might be asking yourself, can't white now play knight to g5? Well, yes, white can, looking for the f7 pawn, but here we can simply castle. And now we permanently have two defenders against the f7 pawn. It's not only our king, it's now our king and our rook. And you might be asking, can't white play bishop takes f7, rook takes f7, and knight takes f7? Well, yes, white can. A rook and a pawn are 6 points of material, a knight and a bishop are also 6 points of material, but as a general rule, two minor pieces, so a bishop and a knight, are worth more than a rook and a pawn. This is just something to keep in mind. So this is never ever dangerous. Black will always be better in a position like this. With all of that in mind, we have reached the end of this video. If there are any questions or something wasn't made clear, do not hesitate to leave a comment down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you guys in the next video.